G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Jeff Williams from Barcats. He's based in Sydney, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Jeff.
Thanks, Troy.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Yuki from Morocco, he's based in Canberra. He and his wife Claire started a great online subscription business last year, a product I'll never use, but to help people manage their grey hairs, and they're going quite well. I helped them out last year with their capital raising, and you've known Yuki for a while?
Yeah, and through one of our investors in Japan, actually, an old Diageo alumni, and Yuki used to work at Diageo as well, and those all those connections. And we, as startups, we try to help each other out. I gave Yuki a bunch of sort of, hey, where do you start in a startup, basically?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you're ex-Diageo as well?
Yeah, I spent nearly 13 years at Diageo, but largely overseas. So 11 years in the UK and a couple of years in North America. And then came back and sat on the exec here in Sydney for a couple of years.
So you might know a good friend of mine who I had on episode 8 from Willie Smith Cider, Sam Reed.
Yeah, no, Sam very well. Sam was working in our events team and Bundy team for quite a while.
Yes, there seems to be a lot of you Diageo people floating around because I also know Ben Koyman as well.
Yep. It's a good school. It's a good school. Diageo back in about 2000 decided that they wanted to be the new Procter & Gamble or Unilever and be renowned for talent management. And I think that's coming to fruition now, where you see both brewers, Lion and CUB, being run by ex-Diageo people. You see big spirits companies like Campari and Diageo, obviously, are all ex-Diageo people. Treasury Wines is as well ex-Diageo. So the alumni has certainly helped me in establishing Barcats, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, Ben left Diageo, went on to found Endeavour Beer.
Yep, that's right.
So tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Well, after 20 odd years in corporate life, about 5.5, 6 years ago, I sat down and came up with sort of 5 to 8 different ideas, and Barcats was really at the forefront of that, around building a hospitality community with staff on one side looking for work, with venues on the other side looking for staff members. I knew from my old corporate days that the corporates ultimately want to build better ambassadors and advocates for their brands. They want to provide better training and education at the point of purchase and try to get their products into people's hands. So I knew that if I could bring all those parties together, there was a holistic hospitality community. And we really set off on a vision of, we want to make hospitality better. We want to make it easier for staff to turn up, trained, skilled. We want venues to save money by recruiting and ultimately provide a better service to the end consumer. So we felt like we were in a unique space. I had a mate that said, your corporate days would have taught you to go and pilot and wait 3 months and test and assess, throw that out the window, go big quickly. So we launched on day one in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, all a bit scary with about 4 months worth of money in our pockets. Yep. We started talking to venues and building staff members, and it just started working. The original idea was almost Uber for hospitality staff. But venues quickly told us, I love that idea of sort of last minute and help me out on Friday night, but told us that all recruitment for hospitality was a bit broken, that Seek and Indeed and the big players are just too big and broad. Yep. And they're not specific enough within the hospitality vertical. They're not passionate enough about hospitality. So that really drove us to 50% of our jobs that we are posting are full-time jobs, 40% are part-time casual, and the last 10% are the sort of help me for the football finals or spring carnival, the last minute sort of jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's evolved really well. We've got, I'm probably a long-winded way to answer your question, but 130,000 staff now on the platform, and 40-odd thousand venues that use us across Australia, New Zealand, and just recently we launched into the UK.
Fantastic. A much needed service. I chair the second largest craft brewer down here in Tasmania, Hobart Brewing Company. So I'm well aware of the challenges of finding and recruiting good hospitality staff, but secondly, keeping them. And also when you've got those casual spots, you need to fill at the last minute. So yeah, terrific service you're offering.
Thank you.
How did you start out?
Literally, we pounded the pavement. We had 2 people in Brisbane, 2 people in Melbourne, and 2 people in Sydney with myself. And it's all about strategy to execution. So we had a platform, but we went out and started talking to people about, here's our website. We spent 5 weeks prior to actually launching the platform, engaging and pre-engaging. And even on day one, we already had 400 or 500 staff on the site looking for work, and our first 100 customers. And the other real big advantage is that from day one, we had engaged with Lion as it is now, and they wanted to be an early investor. So they became a seed investor, and that gave us some great credibility in the marketplace, and meant that we had a big brand there, along with some great Diageo content as well. And it just sort of evolved from there. Treasury Wines also jumped on board, and we really had some founding sponsors to provide that education, training content that really just ensured that the site wasn't just a sort of a blank site. There was already stuff happening.
Yeah, it's hard because you've got to build both sides of the community there, don't you? The bars as well as the staff. So you got to go hard and fast, really, Yeah.
We call it a triangle. Every staff member or every sales guy person we have working for us works the triangle, which is staff, venues, and jobs. Too many staff and not enough jobs. Staff leave you. Too many jobs and not enough staff. The venues leave you. So you've got to build this triangle, gradually and over time. And we really focused for the first 12 months on independent customers. So, whilst a Solotel or a Laundry Group or a Maryvale or an Australian venue company were desperate for our services, we kept on saying no. And we really worked independence first and build our platform out and ensured that the local pub or local cafe or restaurant was where we were focusing. Once we did that, we then had a platform that we could then go and market to the bigger groups. And it's only just been recently that we're now at a stage where we're supporting stadiums and doing hundreds of people at a time.
Yeah, great. And I'm surprised there wasn't a big competitor in this space when you started 6 or so years ago.
No, Seek is the biggest, and they were the original disruptor, if you like. But for their size, they'd sort of become a little bit too big and broad. And certainly no one that does what we do, which is matching what Seek does and LinkedIn, and then bringing those two things together and making it for the hospitality vertical, if you like.
Yep. No, I'm just really surprised no one was already doing this. Yeah.
Equally, we just launched into the UK 10 weeks ago, and no one, I equally thought that there'd be 5 or 6 different businesses over there that would have to compete against. We really are pushing on an open door. And in fact, Coca-Cola, ABI InBev, Campari, White Mackay, Nestle are all major sponsors over there, and are just over the moon with what we're doing and how we're going about it.
Yeah, fantastic. So what year did you start and how old were you?
Yeah, so July the 12th, 2017. So just over 5 years ago. So 130,000 staff on the platform during that 5 years, of which 2 of them were COVID related. So we've come through really strong. We've got a very small group of investors, so only sort of 12 or 14 on our cap table, but are really, are in it for the long haul, and you can see the real benefits that we're providing the industry.
Yeah, great. And do you have some other key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business, like number of team members you started with, full-time equivalent to where you're at now?
Yeah, well, if I just, probably the easiest way is the context of March 2019, as we're heading into COVID. We had 12 full-time staff members. As we're coming through COVID, last year we had 32 full-time equivalents. Today we have about 65, and we'll have about 85 to 90 by Christmas.
Holy shit, that's great. That's terrific growth in just over 5 years. That's amazing. Yeah. And particularly through COVID, because a lot of obviously hospitality venues got hammered, but you guys just kept growing, adding headcount.
And that was really key for us. We saw, I think my corporate upbringing, one of the things that Diageo teaches well, but also just corporate upbringing, is in crisis, be decisive, pick a strategy, and get going. And we did that really well. So it wasn't should we spend some time commenting on how bad COVID is, or we get on and really see the growth opportunity. And we still, day one of COVID, we still had 75,000 staff at that point that needed a job. So we pivoted quickly into areas that we knew that they, whether it be drivers or warehousing or retail. But within 6 weeks, hospitality had found a way to bounce back. And our diversity of markets really protected us as well. So whilst Melbourne was going through really dark days, Queensland was pumping, and WA was pumping, and Auckland was pumping. And then when New Zealand was going through their dark days, Melbourne was starting to open up. So our diversity of markets really helped. And like I said, hospitality found a way that whether they were serving food out the back door, that meant kitchens still had to be open, drivers still needed to be around. There was still opportunities for a lot of our database.
Yeah. So how many team members did you start the business with?
We had 7, so myself plus 6. So Alison, who I now call a co-founder, she was our second employee up in Brisbane. She's been with us all the way through, seen all the growing pains, and it's just been phenomenal. When I think about Barcats, I think about Alison.
Yep. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
I haven't yet. I haven't got there yet, and I think that's the edginess of you want to be on that line of there is so much more to do. There is so much potential. We're barely scratching the surface. We've certainly jumped over some hurdles along the way, and we've certainly attracted some great investment along the way. So I'm really good at celebrating those successes. But the reality of, are we successful yet? Nowhere near it. There is so much opportunity for us to go after.
What does success look like to you?
Yeah, we want to be global. We want to be, ultimately, we want to be bigger than LinkedIn within 10 years.
That's audacious.
Yeah, it is. But I'm sure LinkedIn said something similar 3 years into their journey, 10 years on.
Yep.
And I think that's really important to have a very audacious goal out there of, hey, what does that mean? That means we're going to be, in lots of countries around the world. That means that we're going to have a really strong relationship with young people, where at the moment they don't have a place to go. So a 15 and 16-year-old, they should come onto our site as their first opportunity to come and get their first bit of training. Customer Service 101, I get my badge, I feel brave enough now to apply for my first bakery job or cafe job or job at Taco Bell or Domino's. And then I've got a relationship with them that I'm going to talk to them about what is an award wage? How do you read a pay slip? Have you got your superannuation sorted out? Let's now get you to your first driver's license and influence them around getting the right, getting their firsts, if you like. Whether they then want to have a year out and move from Australia to the UK, their profile moves with them. They come back dead broke a year later, they're still within hospitality. And I think this is the exciting part for us of we can really be in that space that also is then 20% of those people may well stay within hospitality for the rest of their lives, because it's a great industry to move through into management and operations, and there is just so many opportunities within the wider industry.
Yeah. And what's your revenue model? Do you charge venues, or the job seekers, or both?
No, the job seekers definitely not. But we charge the venues to basically classifieds. They pay to post an ad either as a pay-as-you-go or on a quarterly subscription. But we also have some great support from our sponsors like Nestle, Diageo, Lion, obviously, Australian Super, who are also paying for their communication and training courses and supporting the industry that way. So that offsets some of the costs that we then have to pass on. We're about a quarter of the price of the industry, what they normally pay into those big recruiters. So it becomes really quite a value play for them. We're very conscious of hospitality does it tough. The venues are doing it tough. So this is the time that we need to try to really ensure that we can, build with them and grow with them.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
It's all about execution. And as soon as you think, hey, I've got the best app or the best platform or the best piece of marketing and I can do it from my desk, I reckon you're failing.
Yep.
You've got to get out of your chair and away from your desk and actually get out into the marketplace and pound the pavement and execute. For the first 7 months or 8 months, all I did was walk 6 or 7 kilometers, pounding the pavement, leading from the front. But and even now, I was out this morning at 8 o'clock into cafes. We're talking, we're sharing with our sales guys, but we're showing actually that's where the marketplace is. They're not going to find you because they've done some sort of Google search. That comes years and years later.
And you've mentioned funding your business, so you've got a good group of investors there, around 14 on the cap table.
Yeah, and some really notable sort of people. We've got, so Lion obviously is our big corporate, but our second biggest investor is a gentleman by the name of Chris Morris, who was the first, he created his first startup called Computershare, which is now a billion-dollar business, multi-billion-dollar business. He also owns the Colonial Leisure Group, which is some iconic pubs in and around Victoria, WA, Brisbane, and far north Queensland. So as a customer as well as an investor, we've got people like Nick Falloon, who's deputy chair of Channel 9 and chairman of Domain. Ross Greenwood, who's spent 35 years interviewing people around businesses. We've just had Craig Laundy, who is coming as a new investor with us. So we've got a real mixture. We've also got David Zahner, who's one of the managing partners at Bain Consulting, really strong, strategic, probably one of the brightest guys I know. He's on our board as well as an investor. So we've got a really nice concoction or group of people, along with a couple of internationals.
Yeah, that's great. So you've taken smart money on the cap table. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Smart money that actually are also happy to support where to support, but also get out of the way. Guys, go. Happy to sort of follow what we're doing.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Hospitality is fun. Why wouldn't you want to be in hospo? It's we all enjoy it, and I love being a part of the solution, not the problem.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's every day when you're starting, and I wrote myself a note, literally on my phone, that I looked at most days. Every day there's somewhere to tell you it's not going to work. There's a competitor out there that's already doing this. And it's from generally a place of goodwill because people want to protect you, but you just have to be bloody minded and resilient to go, no, I know all that's there, but they're not going to do it as good as what I'm going to do it. Or I can jump over those barriers and to be really bloody minded about it. And I think that resilience is really key because there's days on days that are screaming at you of, are you selling to yourself? Is this really really an opportunity? And there were certainly early days that I thought, take a deep breath, walk around the block, come back. Okay, let's go again. And inevitably, and certainly COVID would have been one of those moments. Friends and family all sort of rung and said, what can they do to help? Like, guys, that's wonderful, but we're going to be okay. We're going to grow through this opportunity. So I think that resilience and bloody mindedness is really key.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
This is going to sound because primarily we're all about recruiting, if you like, and filling opportunities. The biggest challenge for us is recruitment ourselves. So in those first few months, we were spending more money on Seek than we were actually making in recruitment.
Yeah.
So it's the usual thing. And certainly, as a young business, every staff member is really key, but every time you lose somebody, you sort of go back half a step or a step, and then you're constantly reforging a pathway. So that's certainly been our biggest challenge, but equally being brave enough to quickly call things when they don't feel right. In a corporate, you probably have a few more months to sort of work it out and take your time. You need to be a bit more flexible and fluid in a startup. And every day you feel like, hang on, I'm spending an investor's money. It's their dollar that I'm spending. So every dollar has to work for you. And having that mindset that you can't be lazy. You've got to control everything.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
It's a really good question. There hasn't been a day too much where I enjoyed least. I truly love what I do. The reason I left corporate life and, big commercial roles and international travel and all those sorts of things is, but you still had bosses, you still had to manage through a matrix, you still had to have 8 hours of meetings, engaging and enrolling and influencing people. I don't have any of those. I just get up and make something happen. I really enjoy that part of, ultimately, it's in our control. We can build our own destiny. And one of the things we do really well with our team members is we give everybody an opportunity for ownership. And we then give them the same mantra that act like an owner. This is your business, your piece of the pie, and feel fully empowered to whether that be the local person running around Roselle today, or Brighton in Melbourne, or Bulimba in Queensland. It's your little piece of pie, and it's your little business, and acting like an owner really brings that drive out in people.
As in an employee share ownership plan, you put in an ESOP?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, great. Very smart. I had Craig West, the founder of Succession Plus, on episode 55, and I was blown away with some of the stats behind ESOPs, or employee share ownership plans. From memory, I think productivity increases between 9 and 23%, but the big one for me was retention doubles from 5 years to 10 years for those that have an employee share ownership plan in their business.
Yeah, it's really, really important. And we've had a standing article in our board meeting of what other things can we do? What more can we do around this space? I think I genuinely I came into a startup incredibly lucky because I'd had 20 years of a successful commercial corporate business. So the decisions I were able to make were a little bit more measured. I could take my time and be patient. And it really isn't about, one person getting rich and how quickly can I sell this business. It's actually, I want to establish something that's truly sustainable, that's here for a long time. And equally, I want that every single employee to share in the benefits. I'm very, very holistic with that around, that's the biggest opportunity for us.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
That we're actually making a difference. So 405,000 people have applied for a job in the last 5 years, and they've trusted us with their details to go and find them a job. That's 405,000 times that trust and belief is there. And I reflect on, 6 to 9 months ago, we worked with federal governments in both Australia and New Zealand. We worked with them around training. We took about 60 over 55-year-olds that were on welfare, that were down on their luck, had been unemployed for a few years for a number of different reasons. We put them through a week-long training course called Job Ready, gave them an RSA, an RCG, or a gaming license, along with the basics of how to create 3 plates and do the basics and build confidence. And then at the end of it, we then put them to basically create opportunities in venues. And we've got a lady in that zone of over 50 that's just finished her first 12 months of employment.
Right.
And it's life-changing. That's why I'm doing what we do. And I think if you keep reminding yourself of those sorts of stories, you can't but not want to get out of bed.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Again, a really good question around, I think it's that you're fully empowered to do these things quickly. But equally, I'm always caught on, there's always some good times to put some process into your business as well. That you can't just do it fully conceptual, be a bright shining yellow with all the ideas. That actually, as you grow, and as I was saying before, we'll have nearly 90 or 100 people by Christmas. Therefore, process and actually bring everybody on this journey, not leaving anyone behind. Everyone needs, therefore, to be communicated differently. They'll take in information differently. Spending time with people differently is really important. And even more prevalent now, because the wage bill goes up, that actually if you have 20 people that are disengaged, they become a pretty big anchor on your business. So you've really got to, really spend a lot of time and effort in that space.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain? It's
resilience. It's that sort of bloody-mindedness, have confidence in your idea, but then go and execute it. Don't leave it up to somebody else. Don't leave it up to Google. Don't leave it up to Facebook. Don't leave it up to, truly be in control of what you're doing. And I think, I've spoken to a lot of startup CEOs and so forth, and the ones that you can spot the sort of failure early or smell the failure early is the ones that are very tech and have got the platform, and they think that that's very unique, but it's a big wide world out there, and there's not a lot of uniqueness around tech. The uniqueness comes down to the who can execute the best.
Yeah. Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Perfect question for you. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, generally the people that we've made mistakes on, or they've made mistakes in coming into the business, has generally been the level of pace that we move at and the speed. So I want to come into the startup. I love the idea, Jeff. You're engaging. I love the idea of the Barcats business. But when they come in, they just get blown away by the pace that we're moving at, and actually that sort of jack of all trades sort of mindset that, guys, we don't need people to come in and just build more strategy and look at, well, who now does that? Well, actually, you do that. You're also the executor. So we need to roll up the sleeves. And even today, people laugh at me all the time around my phone buzzes every single time a staff member joins, every time we post a job, every time they're being into the devil's in the detail. And I obviously don't look at it, but it does give me a sense really quickly of, has it been a slow couple of hours or what's going on? I can dig into those sorts of things, but you've got to really want to be in that space. And I talk to lots of people that say, hey, I can do that. It's like, well, most people can, but do they really love doing it? And if you truly love the execution part, then you're always going to be successful.
Yep. What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help the growth?
I think we're learning that. In fact, we've just created a little group called our Culture Cats, who are looking at, we were probably 2 years in before we started building values for the business. We bring those alive every month now around how do we really bring that into our day in, day out running of the business. But equally, we've asked the staff to tell us how they want this business to grow. And I'm really conscious of that at the moment of, as we're growing so quickly, how do we still feel like a startup? And feel very that it is in our control versus, I'll leave it up to somebody else because somebody else is going to do this for me. And how do we really ensure that still our values come to the fore of everything we do? And think about Andrea, that person that we got a job, and ultimately their trust that they're putting into us around training, education, and finding a job and staying really close to our core purpose. But I can't profess to saying that we've got that absolutely right. We're constantly thinking about and building it. And that is going to be the real opportunity for us to, if you can unlock that, then you're flying. One of the other things we do is we have a really vibrant WhatsApp communication portal, both here in the UK, constantly sharing photos and successes and fails. And, that's how the team's communicating. Given we're all out pounding pavements or we're out and about, it's really important to, a central point to navigate people.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
So I'm 15 to probably 35 kilos overweight. So I'm not sure I'm a good advocate for balance. I love getting out playing golf. I have a sore knee at the moment, and that's hard to do. But my best day is getting up at 4:30, which I normally do most days, doing a few hours of work, go and play a game of golf, be home for the kids, drop them off at basketball training or various things, then still do 3 or 4 more hours of work and feel like I've done my 8 or 9 hours. I've done some great stuff for the family, and I've also done something for myself.
Yeah.
That for me is a sensational day. I just need to keep reminding myself to do that more often and probably have a few less reds. and a few less large stakes, and do a little bit more around the treadmill and do those sorts of things. But I'm trying, and it's something that I keep having to try to remind myself of.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
Lots, and I think that's one of the things that working in big corporates, they are just sensational places. Diageo were truly world class, and then my second business, British American Tobacco, whilst a pretty horrible product, was one of the best businesses where they invested in people. So whether it being sent off to do an INSEAD diploma or additional education, MBA education, whether it be working with big projects, global versus regional versus execution, cross-functional projects. Those are some of the best learning environments you can have. I've been really fortunate to be in all of those sessions. As a result, again, I think I've been lucky to, when I'm now in the execution mold of this, I haven't had to rely on podcasts and lots of reading, and I can spend 120% on the actual idea and executing. I also have some great people around me, whether it be on the board or investors, that I confide in, and they are great at talking about developing and thinking about different ways to approach problems and opportunities, and they've been unbelievably supportive.
Well, that's the next question. If you've had mentors or coaches.
Yeah, lots. I love my golf, and I love talking about the things. I'm very open about either the challenges or opportunities we have as a business, and it really is the who's who, from high court judges to doctors to financial geniuses to people that worked in media, that people have worked in other startups from 10, 20, 30 years ago. I'm a real sponge for tell me how you approach stuff. What do you think? And that's probably, love a long lunch, but I also love a list. So I'm always amused by, I take my post-it notes out, and I'm always taking notes of what we've discussed or the opportunities that have come about.
Now, you've got a board of directors. How big is the board? How often do you meet? And do you have a chairperson?
We meet every 6 weeks to 8 weeks, so every couple of months. We don't have a chairperson. We've just changed our chairman. We had a chairperson for the first sort of 3 to 4 years. We're just in the midst of doing that again. We've got a board of 6 at the moment. That's the perfect number for us, between 5 and 6. You don't want it too much bigger than that. We've got a company secretary who was a really strong finance background. She's actually joined us to do the help Jeff role, keep us on the straight and narrow, and ensure that all things are done correctly, as well as she actually not only became an employee, but she also became an investor because she believed in it so much. So again, it's a real testament to Eleanor.
And do you sit on the board yourself, or you report into the board?
No, I sit, obviously the number one shareholder. I sit on the board. And again, we do a session which is operational, and then we do a piece which is really around, we've got obviously governance, spaces that we're tackling every couple of months, but we also are looking at, what's the strategic direction? How do we set that I then take back into our leadership team on an operational level? I think we've done it really well to be able to hey, we're on the board now, and this is now the conversations we need to have. Again, one of the advantages of having Lion as our number one investor early days was that we had really strong governance. Their CFO sat on our board from day one. So as we're evolving, we were then adding, independent board directors that made sense to us. We only, even someone like Chris Morris, quite frankly, had a board seat for the first sort of 12 months, and turned around and said to us, it's not useful. You guys are nailing it. If you need anything, come and ask, but you don't need us sitting around a board signing stuff off. You guys go. I trust what you guys are doing, and a great endorsement. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Right, Jeff, on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
It's starting.
Yep.
It's so many people procrastinate on just come on, let's start. And build 10, and then next week build 15, and then next week, and that's why our investors love what we do, is from day one to where we've been, month on month growth, and it's just month on month growth. It's not. So the really important thing for us was sustainable growth, month on month growth, and that's really, from day one we've seen all the way through to sort of whether it was in New Zealand, the UK, or Australia. It is really about sustainable growth, month on month. One of the things that we're certainly seeing, we were profit generating about 18 months ago, but we're now back into investing our investors' money. So we're back into sort of losing money, but growing. And it's really about growing that top line and being really focused on that top line growth, and doing that in the most efficient and effective way. And so what they want to see is consistency and sustainability in that growth, and that's something that we're working really hard to achieve.
What you said at the start of this question, your answer was just to make a start. It reminded me of one of my favorite Thomas Edison quotes: "Vision without execution is hallucination."
It's so true. It's a fantastic quote.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I get asked this a lot, and I really couldn't put. I don't do a lot of reading. I do a lot of doing, and when I read, I'm on holidays and it's an escapism. So I don't spend much time looking at books. I've had a wonderful corporate career that gave me an amazing level of personal development. And that's not to say that, hey, I know it all, because I don't. But that's ultimately then what my mentors and friends and supporters are all there to help me with. So I really couldn't tell you it's Steve Covey's 7 Habits or it's or anything else in that space, unfortunately.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
It really is the same answer.
Yep.
My discretionary time is spent actually with that balance of I'm listening to SEN radio and having zoning into what's Carlton's opportunities this week against the competition, or thinking about golf or thinking about other things. I really try to use it as my downtime versus I'm on for all the other times.
Well, we're both Carlton supporters, and I'm really sad that you've raised that after the end of our season. I was at that last game, as I mentioned before we hit record. 1 point we lost by to get knocked out of the final. So
it's as I explained to my 13-year-old daughter, as tears were rolling down her face at the same game. It's good character building, and you've got to feel the losses to really enjoy the wins.
Yeah,
and she appreciated that. Didn't quite understand it, but fully appreciated it. And certainly on Sunday night when our captain won the fairest and best award at the Brownlow, it was one of those moments that we both had some tears streaming down our eyes, saying, well, that's testament to we're moving in the right direction, and we've just got to find another 23 players to join Cripper to have a fantastic season.
Yeah. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I think it's less a tool, and it's surrounding yourself by good people. And part of that is finding the developer. So I wasn't a tech person. I knew, if you like, I described the house I wanted to build, and I was really clear on what the functionality of that house, but I needed somebody that's going to then see that vision through. And we partnered with an amazing developer in Creatio, a local Australian business that spent a lot of time working with governments and universities and startups, and they knew exactly how to not spend all your money up front and build effectively, that you can constantly keep building in the right way. So all of our tech is proprietary. We've built it from scratch, but we've built it the right way that it can deal with now millions of click-throughs a day. It's scalable into the UK and New Zealand. It's getting better and better. So the best tool I had was finding a good developer, and I probably interviewed 30 before I chose the right one.
Yeah, they're fucking hard to find good ones, developers, nerds. Yeah, even I've got one of my degrees is in computing, and I still struggle to find good ones when I need them.
Yep, absolutely.
Finally, my favorite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
It's going to take you longer than you think, cost you more than you think, but embrace it. And I had a couple of mates tell me exactly that. It's like, yeah, but no, we'll be in profit within 3 months, and it's all going to be roses. It's a lie, and embrace that. Don't worry about that. Don't let that dictate your decisions. If you've got the right product, keep challenging yourself around making it better and listening to your customers. But equally, it's okay to say no, because if you keep putting layers on stuff, it just becomes too unwieldy. So focus on the basic. The platform, the black box, we call it, it functioned from day one, and we didn't do much to it for at least 2 or 3 years, and then we started layering on some more complexity. But start simple, execute, execute, execute.
Have you heard of the rule of 4x2, Jeff?
No, I haven't.
When I was living in London, I heard a venture capitalist talk at a seminar thing, and he was saying how he obviously gets hit up a lot for his money to invest in startups, etc. And he has this 4x2 rule, which he says to the founders that it's either going to take you 4 times as long and cost twice as much, or take twice as long and cost 4 times as much. The only difference is you get to choose which path.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think it just comes with the territory being overly optimistic entrepreneurs that we are.
I think so. And we're sitting in a startup hub, and every Friday night or every second Friday night, there's a pitch night. And it's interesting seeing the true believers, or the salty startup founders that have been through it 2 or 3 times. I do think the industry is a little bit, I think we've probably not had as much accountability in the industry that we need. And certainly we're going through a little cycle now where money is going to be harder to find, and execution is going to be key, versus I've done my 3rd business. I've spent a whole heap of founders' money along the way. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Well, at some point you have to have something that sticks, and you have to have a success. And I think, we need to probably build some more accountability into some of those conversations.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Jeff. I think the audience got a lot of value out of it. Congratulations to you and the team and the investors. You started with 7 team members. You're up around 65 now, and should be around 100 by the end of the year, and helped 140,000 people in the hospitality industry and 40,000 businesses, and global expansions in play. So well done.
Thank you. Thanks for the time. And go Blues next year.
And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.